Howdy folks and welcome to 50 Nautical Mile Arc. Today we are at Sea-Tac and we're going to fly back over to Pullman. And this is a very exciting flight because this is the FlyJSim 727-100 version 2. This thing is hot off the press at the time of this recording. Of course, by the time you're watching this, it's been out for a couple weeks or even a month or so. But at the time of this recording, this thing is brand spanking new. I normally fly the 727-200 Advanced. But today we're going to fly the 100 because it'd be more appropriate flying in a Pullman with the 100. Now, first thing you'll notice is that my frame rate is really dogging, and that's because I have real world weather turned on, and we have this really heavy cloud layer of storms underneath a very, very high overcast layer. So it's killing my frame rates like crazy. I have all the settings turned up, and we're at Sea-Tac, and even though this is a default airport, it is somewhat customized and heavy textures here in rendering, and it just killed my frame rates. Once you get rid of all the clouds, our frame rates will be back in the 40s again. And I know that because this is actually the third time I've done this flight. The first time I did it for practice, because whenever I fly slant alpha, I fly practice flight first because the VORs and distances don't match real life all that well. And the second time, my simulator crashed, which corrupted all the recording. So that was a bummer. And now this is the third attempt, and hopefully this works okay. I was pretty proud of my first landing on my first attempt. It was the best landing I've ever done in my decade of flight sim, so I'm really nervous about replicating that. The second flight was hilarious because as we're coming in to land in Pullman, there's a hot air balloon in the way, and I decided to avoid it, which caused a bad approach, and we had a horrible crosswind. So we'll see how this third time goes. And while I'm talking about wind, the wind is not in our favor at Pullman, but we want to do the VOR approach instead of a visual approach because I really want to show you the VOR approach. But the wind is at her tail, about 15 miles an hour, pushing us, which are 15 knots, which shouldn't be horrible, but we will use max braking because of that and all that stuff. So that is the plan. Like I said, we are flying slant alpha. I have my flight plan all written out here on a piece of paper, so you'll hear papers in the background every once in a while. That's just me looking at my radio frequencies and everything. We will be flying at 29,000 feet, so we're not flying slant whiskey. Once you're above 29,000, the vertical distances between airplanes changes, and then you're flying slant whiskey. But we're flying slant alpha today, so that is the way this is. I'm not really going to look around the airport much because my frame rate is completely embarrassing, and you can always just load the sim and check out Sea-Tac for yourself. And I think that's all I needed to say, though there are some changes with version 2 that apply to me directly. Of course, you can go online and research all the changes of the FlyJSim 727 versions 1 and 2. The differences there. Significant changes. But for the way I fly, there are just a few changes that apply, and I'll talk about them as they happen. The first thing you'll notice is we do have sound, and that's because I've turned on external power. If you turn on your air cart and ground power here, you can turn on external power here, which would simulate people boarding and having cabin lights, things like that, while you get everything set up. I do have maintenance turned off. This does have a maintenance thing where the harder you fly it, things wear down and start to fail, and you have to do maintenance to get them back into shape. I'll be doing that eventually, but not at the moment. I just want to fly without any problems. Otherwise, the first thing we need to do then if we're going to get going is we got to load our passengers and all that stuff. So we'll go here. First of all, let's get rid of some cargo because we're only flying 222 nautical miles. It'll be I think that's my recording software making that flash, by the way. I'm not entirely sure. I use the MSI Afterburner, which is an overclocking utility for the graphics card, but it also has recording built in, and it records FlyJSim very well because I cannot get this to work with the Microsoft thingamabobber, and anything else like Fraps puts weird crosshairs in the middle of my screen. So this is what I use. Alright, we're going to go light, 48 passengers. Fuel weight. It's only 222 nautical miles, but I'm going to go way extra and do about 333 or 322, wherever we can get close to it. Alright, 326. We would do that. Obviously, with this light of a load and light of fuel, this weight is just not anywhere near maximum, so we're not going to worry about that stuff. What else do we need to do? We need to go back up to engineering panel. All these frame rates. Oh, I cannot wait to get above the clouds. If this type of thing keeps happening, I'm just going to fly with custom weather, not real world, because real world weather really, really kills frame rates anyway, even on a clear day. So anyway, battery, where's battery? Battery, what's going on here? There, that's never been a problem. Alright, because we're using external power, we probably don't need to turn on the APU because we would start... Well, yes, we would need the APU because we're going to start the engines after pushback. And then we don't want to worry about the battery draining. I'm going to start the APU anyway. I'm not going to worry about that stuff. Alright, here we go. So we got to trip it first now. Then you can start it. So you go to on, then you trip it. Wait, got to do field first, I think. I don't know. But then you start it. Whoops, oh my gosh. See, this is all a little different. That's not exactly the same as it was before, but we are still going to hold it for a couple seconds until it starts winding up. Then we can let go. If you don't hold it, it won't wind up, and then you think you're on APU and you're not. So I think I can let go now. You can always zoom down here, watch that go up, and then we'll close field first and then generator. It has to be in that order. And while this is loading up, because this takes a while, there is a checklist here, and you can go through it, but this is like the bare minimum of what you need to do to get this thing flying. So what I've done is I've taken that checklist, plus videos I've watched of people going more in depth, plus the stuff I used to do for version 1, plus looking at the actual manual of this thing that I found on the internet, and there's a manual here that comes with this, but I'm talking about the internet, the actual Boeing manual, and I put all that together and made my own checklist. So what you're watching here has a few extras because there's lots of things you can play with that's modeled that wasn't modeled before. But it's more than you need to do to get this thing flying. So that is how I'm operating this today and how I see myself operating in the future here. That's still coming up, so I'm not ready to trip these yet. Or close them, sorry. Trip first, close next. Or I think we're ready to close these. You have to do field first. And as long as that doesn't drop off, we know we're still running. So that's good there. So I can come back over here. We'll turn off external power. Oh, see, turned itself off. Okay, good. Alright, so now we're going to go and do our lighting, whatever lighting we need. Oh man, these frame rates are making me nauseous. You can sit and play with these if you want to. These map lights work if you want to turn those on and such. Is that the map light actually? Yep, see the map light turn on and off. But I'm not going to worry about it too much because we're going to fly at daytime. In fact, I made it a little morning. What time is it? 7:30 in the morning, it says. So I'm not going to worry about the lighting much. It kind of just stays where you want it. You can play with it as much as you want. If you want the red lighting for night because of less reflection and glare, that's fine. We will turn off some of our navigation, or turn on our navigation. We'll turn on the logo, of course. Wing can stay, and these can all stay till we start taxiing away. So what is next? Okay, we need to... Where's my emergency light thing? We need to turn this on. Then arm it. Oh, do something. Whatever. Arm it. I want it armed. There we go. See that? You turn it on, then go back to arm, and that light goes off. There, always that light will just stay on. So you need to do that if you want that light off. And then we have to do our test of the stall horn. That's what our stall. Hopefully we won't hear that in flight, because once you stall in this, there's no recovering. Turn it to normal, that'll go out again eventually on its own. We turn window heat on now, which is different than I used to do before. And those will turn on and off as they're needed. So now we need to go back over here and turn on the APU bleed. Some people turn on one switch, some turn on two. I'm doing two because that's what I saw an actual 727 engineer do, was turn on two, so that's what I'm going to do. Cooling doors should already be open, and they are. I was reading that the 100 might not actually have cooling doors in real life, just the 200, but I'm not going to get into that. You can do your own research. Alright, then you can come down here, and if these aren't bright enough, you can turn on the overhead. You can turn these guys on now. That's red again for non-glare. You can turn these up. You can turn these up. All these things you can play with. You can just play with it all day long. Spend a lot of time doing that. So now that our APU is running, we're going to come over here and disconnect our ground power and our air cart. This menu is all brand new, by the way. All of this is, well, some of these are the same, like hide yolks, but a lot of this is new. You can pause it, read through that if you want to. V card's the same, all different colors. This is the same. I do not have SIVA installed. These are your maintenance options and your checklist. That brings me to, I'll talk about XFMC in a second. Let's see what in a second. Alright, so where are we on my thing? DC meter, which is up here, set to ESSTR. Gas per fan, that's to get the cold air blowing in so that we can get the packs to work. So you want the right AC pack on. I used to turn on both, but now it's just the right apparently. So then we got to change your air pressure. So we're going to cruise at 29,000 just because we don't have enough time to get higher than that if we want to increase our speed, or else we'll be going slow climb, never really get any speed. Our landing altitude is 2,556. So what's going on? Why is it not working? We'll just go like this, I guess. Oh, that's going the wrong way. Oh, it's already at 0. Let's go 1, 2. When I say 2,500 and something, I better look it up. Hang on. It is 2556. Yeah, 2,556. 2,500 and that's Cinema Verde, gets me every time. 60, good enough. This people don't change. I'm not going to change that. It needs to be on ground for now. We'll flip that to flight before we take off. Alright, so now we need to turn... Oh, here's another thing. Some people turn on all these boost pumps now. Some people just turn on that one. I don't know why. I don't quite understand it because they're fuel pumps, but anyway. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and do our flight plan stuff, which isn't a whole lot of flight plan because they're slant alpha, so we're just going to be changing these as we go. So, first thing, we're going to set radios. I'm going to talk about XFMC in a second. So our first radio is 109.6. 109.6. Our next one will be 116. Even. We don't need VOR2 today, I do not believe. So 109.6, 116.0. So 129.6, and we need to be on 81 degrees. Whoops. Hey, I was already there. I'll come back. So there's 90, 86, 32. What did I say? 81? 81 degrees. We'll change this to runway heading once we're there. I can't remember what runway heading is. It's 30. We're going to do 3-4 center, but what's it going to be? In here somewhere, 33, 35, 34, something like that. The reason for that is for autopilot. We're going to go to 10,000 feet at first. And then autopilot has changed a ton for the way I've used it. So we'll talk about that too when we get to the runway. I'm not going to talk about it right now. So XFMC. So 3 options. If you don't already know this, you can do slant alpha, which is when you do a VOR, so slant whiskey above 29,000 feet. This is when you go VOR to VOR to VOR using DME, blah, 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 all this stuff. That's how I like to fly. You can get SIVA, which is this thing, and put in GPS and all this stuff. And apparently it's not too complicated, but it's fussy. If you screw up, you can't use the rest of flight, just like real life. The third option is XFMC, which is your FMC for X-Plane. It's free, however, it crashes my recording software big time. Just having it installed, even if I'm not running it. My recording software only lays on one audio track and the video cuts in and out. So I tried it and uninstalled it. 1, because recording is my priority, and 2, because I would never use it anyway. I'm not an FMC guy. If I really want to learn FMC, I do have the payware Study 777, and I can learn FMC there. But I tried it once, figured it out, got it down, didn't care after that. That was before I was recording, haven't come back to it. So that's our flight plan stuff, because we'll talk about autopilot when we get down to the runway and how it's changed for me. It's changed for me a lot, actually, and how I engage it. All right, no smoking should always be on these day and age. Fasten seatbelt. They're about done boarding now. So now we come back here and turn on the other 7 fuel pumps, which, see, I don't really understand why, because I turned on 1, and then I put in my first 2 radios, and now I'm turning the rest on. So I really don't understand why people do it like that, but they do. Alright, so now we come up here and we close the cooling doors. And this is literally the doors that allow the cold air to come in, which means we'll be turning the gasper fan off in a second as well. Actually, that'll be after we start the engines. Anyway, see, that stuff's all changed. And I'm using every button on this thing. I used to just do what I had to, but we're using it all. Cooling door, whoops, close. These take a while. Alright, so that's close. So now we have to turn off the AC pack so that we have enough power to start the engine. So now all bleed valves open, it says here. And now we're going to begin pushback and start our engines during pushback, just like real life, which is different than how I was able to do it before. So this is how you do pushback. You used to just click on your panel over here and do pushback, but now you actually have to call the ground crew and look at that. I come up here and ignore the frame rates, please. Super awful. Alright, so now what you do is you turn on your ghost, and then you decide where this thing is going to push back to. And in this airport, it's not going to let me turn all that way back. I can go like this, but it's not going to let me get close enough to be on the line. So then you hit auto, and then you release the parking brake, and hit auto again. There we go. Now it's going to push back, and while it's doing that, we're going to start our engines just like real life. So just set it and forget it, just like your crock pot. Alright, so here we go. We're going to do 2, 3, 1. Now that hasn't changed. They come up here, switch to ground, come down here. When N2 gets to 25, you engage fuel. That has not changed. You can see that we're moving still, see? We're still pushing back. And there's 20, 22, 24. Engage fuel. And everything else should spin up. And it is. We'll come back up here, replace that cover, and we'll do 3. We'll just do the cover right away, I guess. Wait for that to spool up. Again, you can see her moving because the shadows are moving. By the way, you cannot turn hydraulic B on until you've pushed back. There are some videos out there where people are not pushing back and they're turning on hydraulic B right away, which is fine if you're not going to do a pushback. If you're going to do a pushback, hydraulic B has to be off, and you'll see what I mean in a second here. There's 22, 24, engage fuel, and engine 1. Ground, replace the cover. This will go out again, by the way, like I said. 22, 24, engage fuel. And we should have 3 engines, and we just finished the pushback. That's awesome. Not on the line, but it wouldn't let us. Alright, so now we're going to come back here. Whoops, wrong view. And then we're going to turn on A and B. And this is stuff you got to be aware of too in version 2. Just make sure these are stable and everything. And oil pressure, oil temperature. Have to be aware of those. That's where your fires come from. There's an oil cooler, but I'm not sure how to use it yet. It does work from my understanding. Alright, that stuff's turning off. So what do we have now? Now we're going to come up here and do our generator ties. We're going to close them. Some people trip them first. Some people just close them. I would imagine you have to trip them maybe in real life. I'm not exactly sure, but this saved a couple clicks. Now we can turn our AC packs on to cool our passengers. And cargo heat needs to go to normal. And let's see here. Central powers go to generator. And that should be bus tie, which it already is. That's your AC meters. And then make sure all the lights are... Oh, our lights are... You know what happened? I was bumping my yoke and I bumped the fuel on my yoke. I might have to restart these engines. Give me a second. Alright, I had to restart the engines quick because I had bumped the fuel on my yoke and it shut off fuel. So now we're back. That was quite a process too because I had to do it in a certain order. But anyway, I edited that out obviously. So where are we? Make sure no lights are on. No lights are on there. And no lights are on there. So we are ready to go. This will take care of itself in a moment. So what is next? Anti-ice. What do we need for anti-ice? Do we need any anti-ice? I don't think we do, but we're going to turn on the pitot heats. And now we're going to turn on for APU and hope we don't lose power. So we're going to come back here. And we're going to trip it. Trip it, and then turn it off. And I hear the APU winding down. The sounds, by the way, in this are absolutely amazing. But we're still running. Look at that. Good, everything's going, nothing's on fire. I was really afraid about being on fire because I had to restart those engines. But anyway. Alright, so we come back over here. And we go from ground to flight for our pressure. And we can take care of our control. We're running a little bit cool because we can. Gas fan can turn off now. And we're going to turn off the APU bleeds, but we'll keep the rest on. The packs are on. Now we're going to come down here and check our reference bugs and everything with our V card. So, 20 flaps, 104, 104, very light today. And then landing we'll worry about as we get closer. 250 knots for airspeed. We're going to come down here and turn on our weather. I can't see from there. Let's go from here. Turn this thing on. See if we have any weather. Look pretty stormy out there. Once that boots up, we'll turn on TCAS. And we'll get ready to taxi here while that's going on. So we'll turn on our taxi lights. Turn these guys on. Turn everything on now. RTO. We'll start flaps in a second. I just want to really get this thing turned on here. It's still in test. We'll worry about that later. But anyway, it's going to do a scan and everything. Alright, so I think we're ready to go. We're going to do flaps as we taxi. And then we'll talk about autopilot when we get to the end of 3-4 center. So we're just going to come out here so we can watch what we're doing, and it's more fun anyway. Take off the parking brake. And we're actually headed... Which way are we headed? We're going that way. Alright, we'll go there. We'll start getting some flaps down as we go here. We do seem to need a lot more throttle to get rolling compared to past version. Keep getting some flaps out. I'm very excited to get out of this airport so that our frame rates will increase. Whoops. See, we weren't lined up with our taxi line because we couldn't get that angle off pushback, but at least pushback is super awesome in this version. So we're going to taxi around to these other terminals and gates. By the way, we're at gate to D9, Delta 9. I did some research and found some American Airlines aircraft at that gate, so that's what I chose for the sim. There should be flaps 20. We'll just stay there. All these frame rates are just bothering me. You've seen in other videos I can pull 60. I'm usually flying between 30 and 40, so this is a big bummer. I did look it up, and we're only getting 12 with real-world weather and being at Sea-Tac. Very disappointing. I also think this version 2 of the aircraft has also decreased frame rates a little bit, maybe, although that's not scientific, so I could be completely wrong. It will only be 1 or 2 if it does, but it's just today we've got this really, really heavy weather, dual layer of cloud action going on, very heavy clouds. And this airport is very, very detailed, and it's all custom. even though its default is still custom. There are a lot of Aerosoft airports in the sim too that are custom. Alright, in case you're wondering where we are going over to 3-4 center, so we're going to go down to the next turnoff. Actually, looks like 2 turnoffs. And then we're going to go to 3-4 center. We'll put along here. So you can see how low those clouds are. I mean, those are really low. And this airport is very detailed. There are the additional hangars and stuff. There are hangars. Gates there. And I believe I said we're already at 20 degrees flaps. Yep. Alright, we're getting to our turn off now, and it looks like the weather updated on us, and all of a sudden we're under a really, really heavy storm cloud. I also updated this SkyMaxx Pro to 3.2.1, which was released, I think, a day ago or so. As of this recording, anyway. For you, it's been much longer ago than that. So, autopilot. So, what I used to do is I used to come down here, and I would hit heading select and alt select now, and it would light up. Then all I would have to do is point the nose up and engage it, and it would take over. It would go to my heading bug, and it would start climbing. But that doesn't work anymore. If I do that, nothing happens. So what I need to do is point the nose up, engage autopilot, make sure my flight director pitch command here is positive and not negative like it is now. And then I can hit heading select, and then I can alt select, and it'll use pitch command for climb until we get to 250 knots, and then I use IS hold for climbing, and then we get to 10,000, then we'll climb at 280 knots. That's climb speed, or climb rate for this thing. And there are 2 other changes too I'll talk about here as soon as I get set up, but I need to line this guy up and stop and set the parking brake and come down here and adjust this to heading or runway heading. So what we're gonna leave this pitch hold, we're gonna leave this bank and turn. So we'll just engage it, make sure we're climbing, then we'll come down here, hit heading select and alt select. That's how we'll do it. So it's a little different than I'm used to. Come up here now, we're gonna add the landing lights. That's how I've noticed it's done, is you keep the taxi lights on for this. Also gonna come down here, whoops. Come down here and we're going to go heading, and we're gonna bring this thing up a little bit, at least 1 line, if not more. And then we have to keep an eye on the speed, because if you're too steep, you're gonna stall. And I believe we're ready to go. Now, when you take off, you don't go full power. You don't go 97% N1. People say that it really should be measuring N2, but Jack had it set up so you measure N1. 97% for takeoff, 92% for climb. And then the rest of these then will all fall into place. What really matters is this. This is what will start you on fire. So if you want to learn how to use that, it could be helpful. I'm going to double check. Make sure everything is, that'll go up when we get going. Make sure everything is fine, because I had to restart those engines, and that made me nervous. Alright, and we'll mess with the AC packs and everything, or the auto pack trips and everything when we are in the air. So we are ready to go. We are going to parking brake, hold the brakes, let it stabilize here on N1, and then we'll let go and we'll take off. And the hardest part is engaging autopilot. Of course I could hand fly for quite some time, but this is a very, very, very busy aircraft to hand fly. So we're just gonna spool up and we're gonna take off now. And we're gonna come down here, make sure we're only at 97%. There it is. Come back up here so don't run off the runway. Just like that, see? Even though I got a 24-inch monitor, I can't exactly see those gauges from here. Oh, weather updated. Now we're not in a cloud, under a cloud. I'm so excited to get out of these clouds. This is horrible. Yeah, I know we're not lined up with the center, but I had to look at our gauges, and that put us off, so whatever. Alright, we're going to rotate now. As soon as we're positive rate, we're going to gear up. First set of flaps in, and we're going to engage autopilot. That's going to get us down that heading bug, and then we're going to make sure we are positive rate. And heading bug wasn't totally with the runway, I guess. And we're going to keep our flaps going. There we go. And that was not runway heading. Oh well. Runway heading was 343. So I guess I could have went down there and calculated 343, but so be it. Alright. Flap schedule still coming in. And last of the flaps coming in. And as soon as we clear the airfield, we're going to turn around. And then as soon as we hit 250 knots, we're going to engage IAS. So here we go. We're going to start turning. We got to be careful. We're actually going to go a little steeper here because we have terrain to worry about. And I'm ready to hit that 250 knots. Just about to get into the clouds already. And then we got to turn down the engines. And there's 250. IAS hold. Heading select, alt select. There we go. Thinks there's terrain problem, but there's not. Now we're going to come back down here and go down to 92 and 1. There is 91. And there's 92. And as soon as we get above 10,000 feet, we'll go to 280 is what we'll climb at. I think we can turn the gear off now. And now we can make sure that it should go to cutoff, and it did automatically. And turn off auto brakes. And we can just relax and enjoy your frame rates increase. So there's 3,000 feet now. Fly out this way a little bit, and then we'll turn south. Of course, we would be doing all this with air traffic control giving us vectors and such. But despite the horrible frame rates, this isn't too bad of a view. Alright, let's turn due south, and then we will look out the window. There's due south. And here's our window shot. There's the airfield behind us. I like how you can hear the trim wheel sounds in the back of the plane. You can actually see those storm clouds twirling. Do you see them spinning right above the wing, between the wing and the engine? They're actually spinning. So yeah, like I said, I am asking a lot out of this sim right now with this weather, because you've got these storm clouds that are spinning and rotating, and then you've got an overcast layer up above us. See that? The big question will be, will we see our mountains from here? because we are going to be going right alongside Mount Rainier, and it caps out at 14,400 feet. And I'm hoping these overcast clouds are lower than that, so we'll still see the mountain. See that overcast layer up there? But yeah, that just looks like a painting, despite the crappy frames. That looks just like a painting. Alright, we're almost at 10,000 feet. We can accelerate to 280. That is just ridiculous. I'm not sure what device you're watching this on, but oh man, that's just awesome. Updated the weather. Oh, it looks like our overcast layer disappeared on us. That's good and bad. I was looking forward to going through the overcast layer, so that's kind of a bummer. But now our frame rates will increase. See, they've like doubled. And we'll see the mountain. So we're level off at 10,000 here for a second. And we're going to say we got clearance now. So our cruising altitude of 19,000 feet. Or 29,000 feet. And we're going to go here and increase this to 280. Which is right there. Come down here and engage IS. Hold again. And hit Alt Select. And we'll come up here, turn off our lights. And now we got to start managing our VOR. So 15 nautical miles. We got to get ready to intercept with this guy. So we're actually going to start turning this way now. So we're offset. We're going to kind of turn more and more like that until we get closer. And we'll be high enough in the sky that this will never get to 0. It'll only get to about 4. There we go, our frame rates are back to normal. Kind of bummed we lost our overcast layer, but that's okay. At least we'll for sure see the mountains without any question. Nice morning sun. Alright, we're still checking this out here. We're at 10 nautical miles. We'll keep turning towards there a little bit here once we get closer. And I'm not going to keep all the video in on this when I'm going over these VORs. We're going to do some off camera, because it's going to, after I do a couple, it'll just be the same thing over and over until we get there. But I'll show you how this is done a few times, because you use both VOR loc and heading hold together. You know, when you change, you got to hold your heading while you change frequencies and direction, and then you got to turn into it or else you fly too far, and then you hunt for it back and forth and all that stuff. So we'll talk more about that as I do a couple. But right now it's just engine management. We're still at, oh, we're just below 92, so let's speed up a little bit. I'll give a little more throttle, I guess, so that we're at 92 N1, which keeps us at 90 N2, and all this stuff is fine and nothing to worry about there. Let's go back here. There are hydraulic pressure picked up. That one's always been that way. Oil is nice and cool right here. As long as you stay at 92 N1, that won't get to the red. But otherwise, yes, it's a busy, busy aircraft. All right, time to turn in a little bit more here. We'll also fly right over that. See? Because the station is just off to our right. And we don't want that to move yet. We want to get a little closer. Although it is moving on us, we're actually going to turn a little harder now. Too busy talking. That's something else I'm going to mention too. When I did my practice flight, again, to make sure my distances and everything were okay. I don't do any talking, and I just nailed it. And then when I was doing my flight, the sim crashed. I was like all over the place, kind of, because somebody talking and chattering. You can see the dark cloud shadows on the ground and everything as well. Alright, so as soon as this starts to move, we're going to come down and hit VOR loc for localizer. Alright, and it's starting to move. So we're going to pop down here in a second. It's actually not moving too quickly because I softened our angle of attack a little bit. It also tells you up here that it's starting to pick it up. So now, I don't want to do it too soon though, because then we'll turn right and then turn left, and so we're going to wait till we're pretty close here. There we go. Now we'll do nav lock. Did I say VOR lock? Sorry, I meant nav lock. Nav loc. And now, there you go, and look at that. Mount Rainier right in front of us. Right in front of us. We're not turning a moment too soon. And it's peeking out above the clouds a little bit. So the peak of that mountain is 14,400 feet. So those clouds are probably 12,000 feet. You can also see the clouds down in the mountains, which is the first time I've seen that SkyMaxx Pro, because this has always been clear skies when I've flown like this. So this is the first time I get to see clouds in the mountains, so that's awesome. Let's have a look outside. There we go. Mountain in the background. Clouds in the valleys. Check that out. Clouds hiding behind the mountains here. That's just awesome. So that would mean if we were flying down there, it wouldn't be very good conditions, because you can't fly through clouds in the mountains, like right here. You just crash into those mountains. Alright, not much time for sightseeing. We really gotta check our things out here. So, still climbing at 280, and we have VOR lock, nav lock, which is good right there. You see how the wind is making us track differently, heading differently than we're tracking. Everything else is green and good. So I think now we can hop over here and look out our co-pilot window here for the mountain. Now if it were clear, we would see Mount Adams and Mount St. Helens off in the distance as well. Mount Adams is like right about here. Mount St. Helens would be off the screen to the right. But I don't think you're going to see that with these clouds like this. But that is some heavy cloud cover, isn't it? Man, that is heavy stuff. Not good for VFR, because you'd be in the clouds even on the ground. So what we're looking for now on our instruments is at 40 nautical miles, or 40 DME, we're going to change to our next VOR and then change our direction to 104 degrees. Because the intersection here is a waypoint, but we don't have GPS, so we had to measure, or I had to measure the distance to the waypoint and then go on our next path from there. This is my favorite thing right now, is looking down into this valley. Oh my gosh, that is amazing. So as Mount Rainier is passing under our wing, you'll notice that our overcast layer came back, which is awesome, except it doesn't know what to do around the mountains, so it just kind of stops. I do have blending turned up all the way, but apparently the height of the overcast layer is lower than some of these mountains, so it just doesn't know what to do. That's kind of funny. Also, too, with version 3.2.1 of SkyMaxx Pro, if you remember in our video from War Road to Fargo, we had that weird shadow issue on the end of the draw area. Apparently that's been fixed in this version, but I'm not sure we're going to be able to test that in this video. There's Mount Rainier. Again, if we didn't have overcast, we would see Mount Adams pretty much straight out in front of us. And we would see Mount St. Helens back there, behind that engine. But because of the overcast layer, we're not going to see those mountains, which is fine. This would be a great flight to do clear skies, because then I could also point out a few things as we come into Pullman, but I wanted to real world weather. And I love this mist and fog down in that valley. Oh, I heard the horn. We're coming up on 29,000 feet, so let's hop back up front and see what's going on. Alright, there's our hilarious overcast layer. Well, that's not so bad. I guess this is all mountainous above the overcast, and it just blends right here. That's not so bad, I guess. I guess we're just assuming this is all above overcast layer, but we get some mist in the mountains. Alright, now we got to pay attention to what we're doing. Alright, 28,000. See, this is what I'm talking about. We lost our DME already, even though in real life we should have that still. So now we got to come down here. We need to do a heading hold. Then we got to figure out what we're going to do next, because now we don't really know where we are. So let's come down here and do a heading hold. And let's switch over to 116. And are we going to pick it up yet? Yes, 45 nautical miles. So let's move this to 104. You can go like this. Oh, come on. And as you can see, we've pretty much kind of passed it. So we're going to let that come in a little bit slowly. Once we get closer, we will engage. But we kind of want to fly over it. If you do it too soon, it's going to bank, you know, standard rate turn to the left and then immediately bank to the right. And you do these S curves, and it just isn't very pleasant. But you can see how quickly this goes. We're sightseeing. We came back in, our DME expired, we switched radios, and all of a sudden we got a switch now. Flight time in real life is an hour for this flight, but that's with the slower plane, so it's going to be less than an hour, but we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, we got 9 radio changes to make in that hour, so that's, you know, less than every 8 minutes or so. So we're getting closer here, then we're going to switch over. Again, looking here, 92% still. Everything is fine. Then once this gets, well, we're going to have to turn this down a little bit because we're going to be flying because we're only at 29,000 feet. If we went higher, we'd still be at 280. We wouldn't get to cruise speed because we'd be coming down right away. So I'll manage that in a moment. I'm going to wait till, some people call it station passage, but we're not going to the station. We're just going to fly over our radial. And then this should go down. And then when it gets to 0, we will fly over the station and change to 87 degrees. In fact, I won't even do a heading hold for that. I'll just change this to 87 if I'm feeling brave. We'll see how I feel when we get there. But you can see, you know, we got to make a change again in 30 nautical miles, which is only a minute or two. So we're about to cross over our radial now. I want to make sure we're at it or past it, or else it's going to S-curve even for that little bit, and it's annoying and uncomfortable. So there we go. Come back down, nav lock, or nav loc lock. I think it means localizer, so loc I call a lock, like locking in. And we lost our overcast again, which actually I'm not too disappointed about, because now we'll be able to see things going into Pullman. Like we've got the Columbia River, and we got these 2 lakes, which look like a river to me, but they call them a lake. And then we'll be able to see North Granite State that we've flown in and out of a few times in previous videos. We'll be able to see all that. See, it's still S-curved. We're just never going to win that one. I guess maybe I could have engaged it a little soon, and then it would start to turn left, and then by then we'd catch up, and then we wouldn't S-curve. So I think I'll do that next time. It also has to do with your distance, so, you know. So not much going on for the next 20 some miles, so let's have a quick look outside. There we can see our 3 mountains. Actually, can we go like, there we go. We got Mount Rainier here, Mount Adams here, Mount St. Helens back there. So now that the overcast layer disappeared, we can see all 3. That's kind of cool. You also notice it gets blurry. I have my detail draw distance on maximum, but it still gets blurry way too close. It would still be nice to see much farther than that. That's just very strange to me. But if you look straight down, then it looks wonderful. This is version 3 mesh, obviously. I say obviously because all my flights have version 3 mesh. I love seeing these tiny towns and then your bigger towns and cities. Alright, so I guess not much to see here. 13 miles DME. I guess I'll see you in 12 miles. Actually, we got to prepare. I'll see you in about 8 miles or so. Alright, we're preparing. So we're still going to stay at 116 for this next leg, but this needs to change to 109.8 for our next bit. So let's come back up here now. And let's do a heading hold here anyway. I'm going to do heading hold anyway, just to show you how this is really done. And then we're going to change this to 87 degrees. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then as soon as we start to cross this, we'll go back to nav lock. Now this one should fly across if I remember right. This won't be as gradual as the other. But if I engage lock now, it's going to bank way right and then way left. There you go. Now we'll come over here, we'll do nav lock. And now it's only going to bank the one direction. It'll go to about here, then it'll S-curve a little bit, but not nearly as bad. So the next plan is at 25 DME. We're going to change to the other radio, which is 109.8, which is all ready to go. And then we'll do 93 degrees, which isn't that much. And we're actually going to reach top of descent pretty soon here at about 21 DME. And we'll start coming down. I'll show you how that's done. Speaking of that, we're pretty close to overspeed. So let's draw back the power a little bit. I'm talking about over here. We're at 0.82467, 0.87 Mach, which is well above standard cruising speed. There we go. That worked out well. No S-curves there. Yeah, a little bit S-curve. That's okay. Not too bad. So again, heading versus tracking because of the wind. They don't line up, but they do line up. So there we go. We'll line up just perfectly there. So again, 21 DME will start coming down. 25 DME, we need to make our next change. There we go, 21 DME, just like I said. How's that for judging it by view? So now we need to come down. So we're going to set this down. We need to be at 4,400 feet. So there's, whoops, 5,000, switch mode, and 4,400. All right. And how are we going to descend? We are just going to descend. Do we want to descend with speed? No, we're just going to descend with pitch. So we're going to come down here, we're going to kill the throttle, and we're going to do alt select. That'll be pitch hold. Actually, you know what I am going to use? I am going to use IAS. But I'm going to wait till we get down there, else what will happen is we'll point up and then we'll point down. And then what I'll do is I'll change our VSI with the throttle. You know, everybody focuses on your N1 and your climb speeds. I haven't looked at the actual descent speed. I should do that. Because, you know, you always climb at 250 until you reach 10,000, and then it's 280 in this aircraft. But I don't know what descent is. Of course, descent is 250 below 10,000, but what's descent right now? Anyway. Alright, we're about ready here to engage IAS. And the reason why I'm doing this is I don't want to slow down and slow down and slow down while we're descending. I want to keep our speed. So now, we don't want this to get too ridiculous. So we'll use our throttle to keep that from being too steep. We'll descend about 2,500, 3,000 or so. Here we're descending pretty heavily. Look at that wing flex. Oh my. We are coming down quick. But we need to. Because Pullman is right over there already. We are going to get pretty close to these hills, and we'll be well below them. I guess these are mountains, they're not hills. Even these aren't hills. But yeah, we'll be turning just before that. Okay, let's hop back inside for one more check. Alright, we're descending at a good clip. 16,000 feet. Looks like we're going to make it without speed brakes. That's good. I don't want to come down too quickly, but we are shooting for 4,400. We're at 16.5 now. Again, we had to slow down just because we would have gotten there too quickly. Everything else looks good. Everything is where it should be. Engines are, throttle's pulled back, so that's down. That's good. Way cool again. Plenty of fuel. It's hardly moved. Alright, well, not much else to see here, so I will check in with you about 52 DME. We're not quite at 52 DME, but I really wanted to share this scenery with you because this is just awesome. We're about 12,000 feet now above sea level. And so we're really getting low to the ground because obviously ground altitude here is 2, 3, 4,000 feet above sea level. But that just looks so nice. Tiny town down there. We'll be churning back over this lake, they call it, although it looks to me like a river. And then that's about where we'll see North Granite State. So yeah, let's just have a look at this. This is just awesome. Alright, unfortunately, we need to manage the aircraft. Another tiny town. So 39 DME. Let's see where we at. 11,000 feet. We descended a little quicker than we needed to, so let's level off here a little bit. And I'm leveling off by increasing the throttle, so we'll stay the same airspeed. Especially because I don't want to hit those hills in front of us. So we're not quite ready to turn. We're close, but not quite ready. We'll be turning and heading this way. I'm enjoying this valley here. That's a really cool valley. Also, too, this haze that you see here, this is from the real weather. If I did not have real weather turned on, and even if I decreased the visibility, it wouldn't look quite like this. This is one reason why I love flying with real weather, even if it's clear, because this haze, that's how that's drawn in there. That's where it gets that from. Of course, as we discussed in the beginning, real world weather slaughters your frame rates. But so be it. Alright, so heading select now because our DME ran out again. See, you can't really rely on real life charts because it's not the same as sim. So 109. This is our VOR for Pullman. We're going to come up here and we want 32 degrees. And as you can see, we kind of went past it because of the DME ran out. So we're going to go this way till we connect. But I told you we wouldn't hit those mountains. I knew we would turn before then. But we also need to increase our throttle a little bit. Actually, no, 36 miles. Now we should start coming down, shouldn't we? All right, let's get our lights on. Landing lights, and like I said, other people are turning their taxi lights on with this too. So that's what we're going to do. Put this thing on max because it's going to be an interesting approach, and the wind is not in our favor. So 35 nautical miles, let's start coming down even more now because we've got to be at 4,434 nautical miles. And that means we got to come down 6,000 feet. And we're about 8 minutes out. So let's do just less than 1,000 feet per minute. We can adjust accordingly. And I'm going to come down here a second. Whoops, not that one. This one, and I think 3 arm speed brakes. Yes, 3 arms of speed brake. We can do TCAS, although we don't have any traffic with us. I wanted to change that before, I just didn't care. So the speed brakes are armed, although we might need them. I'm about ready to intercept that VOR now. Oh, let's come down even more. We're already at the speed limit for 10,000 feet, so that's fine. And let's engage. Alright, so this is how this approach is going to work. First of all, we're going to look out our window when I talk about this. I really want to see these mountains. There we go. So, we got to get down to 4,400 feet by the time we cross the VOR. As soon as we hit the VOR, we're going to kill autopilot and go visual, banking to 27 degrees. And start coming down. Like I said, that's all going to be visual then, in terms of looking at the runway, because we will see the runway by then. Now what's going to happen is we are going to come at the runway at a pretty steep angle, and then at the last second we're going to bank and land right on the runway. And what that's going to do is it's going to bring us south of town. Ooh, our weather just updated. That's awesome. In fact, look at that. Clouds between the mountains again. Clouds in the valleys. And I'll be repeating myself in a minute. I'm just kind of distracted by the scenery right now. That is just gorgeous. Alright, so then we'll be coming south of town, bank at the last second to land. The wind will be pushing us and from the side, so it is going to be quite an interesting landing, which is why I have my brake set to max. Spoilers are already armed, we'll use reverses, all that stuff. And runway heading is 055 degrees. So how does that differ from something like GPS or nav? Well, if you use GPS or nav approach, it's straight in. Just straight in, right over town, straight in. And that's as simple as that. No big deal. VOR though, this is the only VOR approach. And that's for runway 6. And this is the only way. Of course, we could go around the runway, go around the airport and do completely visual like they do in Vegas all the time. But with these clouds and this high in the air, high in the mountains, it's not going to be that. It wouldn't be that easy to do visual approach. Plus, I would like this VOR approach. It's fun, and I wanted to show it to everybody. So what do we got? We have exactly 5,000 turbulence, 5,000 feet to go. 19 nautical miles to do it. So we're doing about 3, so that's 15. So yeah, we want to do about 1,000 feet per minute, so let's slow down a little bit more. Because we also have to lose speed, get gear, and flaps down all that time too. And Pullman, if we didn't have these clouds, we would actually see Pullman right now. It'd be right about here. But these clouds are in the way. And if I need to kill autopilot, then I will. In fact, I'm going to use some spoilers after all. I love that spoiler sound. Did you hear that? That's kind of why I wanted to do that, because that spoiler sound is so awesome. As soon as we get 200 up with the spoilers, then you hear the change. There we go, spoilers in. And we'll maintain our descent. A little early for flaps and gear. Now, right over there, you should see North Granite State. There's a Lower Granite State. It's Granite State something. It's a state park, and there's an airport there, which we have taken off and landed to a few times while flying to Pullman and back. And look at this turbulence. Right in the clouds. 10 nautical miles are going to make our turn, and we got to get gear down and flaps out in those 10 nautical miles. Or after those 10 miles. So flaps 30 is right there. So I can just see that from back here. I want to know it's that second to last line. Our landing speed is going to be 113 plus 5 plus gust. 113 plus 5 is 118. However, we're going to be gust from behind. So that's going to just take a lot of power, that's all. I don't want to miss our little airport view here. It's kind of behind the clouds. There it is. There's the airport. We've taken off and landed a couple times. There's the dam. I did look up what's here. Absolutely nothing except a campground over there. Look at this turbulence. But if you remember when we were in the Beaver, this was cut and climb getting out of here. So this is pretty deceiving this high up. But those are very, very steep mountains. It's very steep. valley, deep valley. And I see Pullman. Do you see Pullman? There's the town of Pullman. There's the airport. So we're going to come right south of town and at the last second bank and land on the airport. That's the VOR approach for this. Our average GPS, you just fly straight in like this. Right over town. See all the cloud shadows on the ground? Isn't that awesome? This is a great weather scenario. Looks wonderful, and we got some really awful turbulence. This is going to be a very interesting landing. Let's get our first set of flaps out now. Because in 6 nautical miles, we got to be down. And we got to start slowing down, too. I might just go autopilot in a second here. I've also read that in turbulence, you usually go autopilot anyway. It's more comfortable, apparently. Still not ready for gear, but I got lights on. Brake set to max because of the runway. Spoilers are armed. Descent is being maintained, although we're a little high. I want to kill autopilot now. And I think I'm going to do next set of flaps. Okay, folks, one of the rare moments I fly this thing manually. Those of you who know that I like to fly this autopilot from the end of the runway until we touch down. I'm going to get gear down because I can at this speed and because it'll give us some drag. I still have no throttle engaged. We've been free falling for a while here. Oh, this turbulence is awful. Oh boy. See, we're getting blown off course. We're already at 4,400, so let's put our, or I'm sorry, we're 1,000 from 4. I listened to the horn, it's 1,000 off, so we're gonna a little more throttle. I still want to come down a little bit. And I want to get more flaps out, but we're going way too fast, and that runway's going to come up very quickly because we're right over the station now, so we're going to turn. So we're getting blown all over the place. And our airspeed is just cruising still. So let's get the next set of flaps out. That should bring us down. Oh, this is crazy. I've never experienced this before. This is going to be fun, guys and gals. Oh, this is awesome. And obviously my sim did not crash because you're watching this. Alright, gear down, everything is armed and out. Let's get those flaps going again. Of course, more flap is going to cause more drag, which is going to cause a little bit more turbulence, but whatever. We're still going a little fast yet. Wow, this is insane. Okay, look at, oh my gosh, we need a lot more throttle now. We're below what we want to be. No, we're at the right speed. But we crossed the station at the right altitude, so yeah, we want to start coming down now. We won't see the Pappy until we're completely lined up. I told you this wind would not be in our favor. See what this looks like outside quick. Look at that. All over the place. Alright, no more sightseeing until we land. We need more flaps. And a lot more throttle to compensate for those flaps. So I'm aiming for this until we touch, just before touchdown. Then I'm going for that other flag because we need 5 above this flag plus gusts. And the gusts are from behind, so we just need a lot of power. Alright, coming up on 30 flaps. And we got to get down. I'm really fighting this. So right south of town. Look at that. We're right on to 27 degrees. We are following the VOR approach to a T, even with all this crazy turbulence, and we are going way too fast. But it is really hard with gusts from behind and from the side. Look at that speed indicator just bouncing around. Oh my goodness. So, see, we gotta stay fast enough that when the gusts stop, we don't crash. Okay, so I'm just going to stay. I'm going to approach a little fast because of that wind from behind. I want to keep the power up. I don't want to go too slowly or we'll stall. It's hard to see that runway because it isn't rendering for some reason until we get there. So here we go. This is where I was in my other flight where I had a hot air balloon come at us. I went over the hot air balloon and then I had to descend around it. Then we're going to get a sink rate warning. Don't worry about that, because we got to come down sharp now. And then we got a horrible crosswind, and we're going a little fast. We're a little high. Oh, look at that crosswind. Oh, this is going to be something else. See, told you we're going to sink rate warning. We're just coming in so fast. All right, I'm killing throttle. All right, no throttle. We're just going to go here. Yep, I know. Not. Yeah, I know. Nothing to worry about. We're not going to stall. There we go. And that sound you heard is not people screaming. That are the spoilers engaging. First time I heard that, I thought for sure people were screaming, because in some study aircraft you get the passengers clap if it's good, scream if it's bad, but that's not what that was. Alright. Even with max brakes, oh my goodness. So you gotta remember now, we landed at the right indicated airspeed, but we had gusts from behind, so our ground speed was really fast. Wow, I am happy I landed that thing. And I don't know why this doesn't render until you've been here a while. Something strange is going on. But anyway, let's slow down here and come up here and turn these off, or it's going to cause us to stop. Alright. Well, we made it. That was very, 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 very challenging landing. When I did my practice flight to test the radios and distances, and I had my best landing ever, it was perfect conditions. Real weather, but no wind at all. And it was just fine. So this was very challenging and very, very fun. Oh man, did I enjoy that. We got to make sure we get past our ground here. Let's just hop outside. Oh, look at that. We barely fit. But this is a plane that would be landing here. Start getting those flaps up, and we're going to start the APU. Except I don't think I can do it in transit. I think we'll crash. So we're just going to stop here a second. And then we'll come back here, turn off the lights. I guess it's going to keep rolling. That's okay. Keep the taxi lights on. Come back here and start our APU. Now I think you need to trip again or something. That's not what I meant. See, that was not what I meant. Come on. Come on. There we go. I'm nervous because I can't see where I'm driving. I'm just going to hit the brakes and stop a second. Alright, is that going now? Yeah, it's going. Alright, let's hop up front and see if we ran off the runway. Nope, good. Alright, here we go. Alright, let's taxi. Not to the WSU, but there's an actual... Oh, I think I lost my hydraulics. My nose wheel, hang on. My nose wheel isn't turning. What's going on? My brakes aren't working either. Oh, what did I do? I hit the wrong button. There we go. See, I knew I tripped something. No, they're on. I hit the wrong button, didn't I? And I killed my power. Alright, let's stop there and see if parking brake will work now. Alright, hang on. Alright, for this replay, we're going to actually fly over all of Pullman. Just because, I want to see what that looks like. It should look pretty cool. We should be able to see pretty much all the city of Pullman from this view. There we are. That's where the pay where scenery starts. You can tell where it changes color. Wow, that is some turbulence. That was a tough landing. But the scenery is just so awesome. Should be able to see some stadiums from this angle. We should be far enough south. There we go. Over the university. There we go. Now we're turning to make our bank because we're getting blown off course. Over the golf course now. That's a cool shadow on the ground. It has to be cool when you're golfing there. Or annoying, depending who you are, I guess. So we came in a little high, but we really didn't have much choice. There's the airport fence. spoilers, and why they come back down right away, I have no idea. That was weird. I didn't do that. Hear the reverses and everything. That's awesome. Alright, let's check out the landing from the outside. Alright, let's do this side this time. There you go. I tried to touch down one wheel at a time, and it seemed to have worked. We're not centered, but I'm just glad I got that down. That was pretty risky. I want to do a runway replay, but I think it crashes for some reason when I do that, so let's just go back to real time. Okay, folks, if you're wondering what happened, while I was letting it hang out by itself and we did our replays, I lost hydraulics again, and it just kind of drove itself off the runway. So I don't know what happened. That's what happens when I try to play around on camera. Normally I would have parked this thing and then started the APU and then called it a day, but I really wanted to be fancy and start the APU while we're taxiing and all this stuff, which just doesn't work if you're by yourself and you're trying to fly a 3-person plane. So we will just leave this here and we'll call it a day, and hope you enjoyed it. I am really, really sorry about the way this video ended. This isn't my style, but the rest of the flight went too well to redo it, and that landing was super cool. I don't want to redo that either. So here we are in the field. FAA will be here to investigate soon, and yeah, so hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, please subscribe if you found me by accident. If you stick with me and watch me regularly, I appreciate the support, and I guess I will catch you on the next one.